call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. No permanent excuse, anyone excused from the meeting. Neil will be away for about a half hour, but he'll be back. Adoption of the minutes of the February 10th meeting. Is there a motion in that regard, Holly? No errors or omissions noted, so all in favor of approving the minutes of the February 10th meeting, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Call for post-agenda items. Are there any post-agenda items that we need to add to the agenda? Seeing none, a motion to adopt the agenda would be in order. Amanda, all in favor that we approve the agenda, please indicate. Thank you. That's carried. Question period or notices of motion. Are there any questions from anyone in the room or watching virtually? Seeing none, we'll move on. We do have some delegations attending beginning at 11 and 11:30 prior to noon today, but I'm going to suggest that we move down to item number 8, Ag Service business. Additional spending approval from Emerson Bridge Park update. Todd, are you with us this morning? I haven't seen Todd today. Is he? Maria. Oh, Maria. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Let's move to 9.1, request for refund of development permit development fee for the ID Historical Park. Shanley, please. 9.1, correct?
Thank you. Maria might want to add to this when she gets back. The EID Historical Park paid for their permit, which we just discussed in MPC, the $600 fee, and they have requested a refund of the fee. There wasn't, in the past we've done in 2012, as I mentioned in my letter, they requested a refund which was granted. In 2018, we had a no-charge permit for them. Generally, for not-for-profit organizations, they can request a refund. Generally, they pay the full fee. We are recommending that not-for-profits would pay the regular fee as all other landowners.
Okay. Are there any questions? Sorry. Yeah, Dan, please go ahead.
So we're just talking about on their own properties, right? If it's on County of Newell land, is that a different scenario, or are you suggesting it'd be the same no matter who owns the land?
Go ahead, please, Shanley.
We're recommending that it would be the same regardless of who owns the land.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions or a motion? We see the recommendation is that the refund be denied. Adina, please.
I'm just wondering, how common is this to have somebody request to have their fees waived?
It's not very common at all.
Kelly, please. Thank you.
I feel like we have a land use bylaw. It doesn't say who it's for everyone, right? So I'm suggesting that we take staff recommendation, and that would be my motion.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the request. Any further? Sorry, Ellen?
Oh, I thought it was option number 1 to approve the refund? To refund the $600 fee that was paid prior?
No, the recommended action is down below, so it's option number 2.
Right, the motion is option number 2 at the recommendation of staff that we refuse the request for the $600 fee by the EID Historical Park for the development permit. So any further questions or comments? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. Opposed? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Shanley. Let's move back up to item number 8, Ag Services Business. Welcome to the meeting, Todd. Good morning.
Thank you for having me today. I look forward to the chat. It's over the years, it was not common practice to ask for more money after budget, but apparently this year is my year. So I thought I wrote a whole bunch about Emerson, and I think I tried to explain what we've been doing. Emerson's kind of transitioned into what it is today. It started as a very wilderness-type campground, and then we kind of moved into, we determined that there was things going on down the park that the county wasn't satisfied with, so we moved into a third-party lease arrangement, and then that really wasn't working perfectly for keeping up the infrastructure. So in 2008, we took over the management of it in-house, and we started investing relatively heavily in the park for patrons. So over the years, we've added lots of things: showers, washrooms, potable water, sandy dump, those kinds of amenities, and I think people have appreciated it. We've gone from about $20,000 in revenue up to just over $100,000 last year. So that shows you that more people are camping. Obviously, the prices have went up a little bit since taking it over as well. We do have the opportunity to invest again in the park using the municipal MSP. I don't know what it stands for. It was money from the Alberta government to try to spur some local projects. So that's where we're at now. We thought we could do it for the $350,000 that we agreed to utilize out of that grant funding. I outlined for you guys where our budget numbers were, and when we went out for quotes, where they came back in at. Obviously, we're shy of what our budget was, and it's hard to believe that we're only 6 months away from when we got those budget numbers from local companies, and that's where the actual prices came back at. So that's where we're at. I was hoping that could borrow some of the Regional Enhancement Fund to complete the project and set Emerson up for more in the future.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Are there questions? Holly, please.
I have a couple questions. One is the difference in funding is $75,000, but you're asking for $120,000. Another question is, I've heard complaints about not having good Wi-Fi, so I can see why you need that part, and certainly need power for the sites, and I think water is pretty important, but I'm kind of wondering why you feel septic is necessary. People are camping there to take it to septic dump. Is that really if I'm looking at it being too expensive, isn't that something to be fairly easy to cut?
Yeah, I think a couple great points. The cell phone reception, we've invested heavily in the cell phone tower that's there now, and that technology, and it's when there's too many people drawing off it, and apparently when we have leaves on trees, it's very minimal service. So a little bit later, and I like your comments there, because we have the potential for an emergency in the park, and we don't want to be in that boat as well. And then we kind of went down the path of doing full service sites. We have lots of people that are liking, sorry, I don't know if I'm talking too loud or too quiet. We have lots of people that want to do more longer term stays at the park, which is fantastic. Lots of monthly interest and lots of seasonal interest. So we open up our seasonal sites, I think it's next week. And I think Will's talked to more people than we have seasonal sites available. So I think that's what we're starting to note, is that we're just getting more longer-term people, and So we thought the full-service site where somebody could dump their sewer right at the site would be a natural step. Emerson doesn't have a lot of things that sets it apart from other parks outside of just the quiet, beautiful nature of the park. So this might be an area that people don't have access to throughout the county as well. It's another draw.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Go ahead, Holly, and then Lynette, please.
Can you explain what irrigation to new full service is?
Yeah, so when we put the first irrigation down at the park, we irrigated the more commonly used areas where we would see more risk of fire and wanted to keep things greener. So more use, essentially just trampling of the grass and all the rest of it, it ends up just dying off and doesn't come back. So the area that we're anticipating upgrading has been generally low use. It's been tenting areas, overflow kind of on a weekend where everything else is full. So that's why we thought this was a natural place to upgrade, to kind of get more use in that area. And so that just leads us into an area where we're extending the risk of that fire to a different area of the park, and then just more use, more trampling of the grass, and not enough rain in this area to keep her green. Emerson has wonderful cottonwood trees that produce that beautiful fluff, and that beautiful fluff is like kindling when you get one spark. So we really like to keep the more used areas wet.
Okay, Lynette, please.
I was totally on board with Holly as questioning why water and sewer to these sites. A lot of campgrounds do not have that. Like, that is almost unheard of in a lot of places. And I also did some asking. They usually don't charge all that much extra, even if they have that. Have you done any... Has there been thoughts on how much more money you can charge for these ones? Like a little return on investment? Like $120,000 is a lot just for those extra services.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I don't exactly know what we're going to charge, but we do certainly have to run those numbers. We anticipate that the full-service lots, or at least some of them, would end up being more long-term type rentals or leases. So it's a great question. In my head, we had ran the $45 mark, where we're at $30 now for just power. That was where we were at. So it's only $15 a night. But I mean, we're putting these things in, and we're not walking away from the campground anytime soon, right?
Yeah.
But some of the, like, when you do a long-term one, then usually there's a deal, right? So you're probably not even going to see the $15 on the long-term people that are wanting that. So it's kind of, I don't know, a balancing.
Yeah, and our current seasonal sites are set at $2,000 plus GST, so it works out to $2,100. And we have sites in the campground that, when they're just rented out by the night, some of them make $2,100, some of them make $2,600 a year, some of them make $1,200 a year. So we're going to take these current tenting sites that make probably $800 a year and turn them into more.
Okay, thank you. Greg, please, and then Ellen.
Todd, what is the projected revenue increase with the expansion, and have the numbers been run that way to justify the septic? I know that from what I see from the actuals compared to the budget, that's a major difference of $40,000 for septic to sites. I do agree that if you're there long term, that septic is important. Is it possible that these don't need to be long term? Can we keep that park would we make more money by having it a flow through? Because camping is going to be very popular here in the next. It already is. It's super popular. Everything is full. So I'm wondering if permanent sites is really the answer here. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
I have lots of thoughts, and I did run some minor projections, but I don't know that it's really hard because camping is so up and down every year. If somebody told me that Emerson was going to make $110,000 last year, I would have told you you're crazy. That doesn't make any sense, but we've just seen an astronomical increase in camping. We have a lot of people that come from out of town now, and Emerson has been historically first come, first serve, and we intend to keep it that way, at least until somebody tells us to go to a reserve type scenario. But yeah, so I don't know that my projections are good enough to quote in a council meeting, but of course, because we were going through this project, my projections are we're going to make more money, but I don't know if I would want to quote them. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but
It would help if we're spending more money. You know, we obviously are, but if we're weighing between permanent, adding that extra cost, it might be important to maybe do some budgeting research on the revenue side of things. And also, are we putting a staff person there full all the time for ins and outs and things like that?
we do have a current, well, we're actually hiring for an on-site manager, so if anybody knows of somebody that's interested in that type of position, but yeah, we do have somebody that stays down there. All the times that the gates are open, we have somebody there.
Okay, thank you. Ellen? No? Kelly, please.
My question is, the upgrades that we've done so far, have they been full service? No.
No.
So this would be a new, to have full service sections, this would be a new advantage over the EID parks, basically. Because I know Crawling Valley and Lake Newell, or Rolling Hills, thank you, they don't have sewer to their sites or septic to their sites, so this would set us apart. That's the point you're making. Okay, thank you. And how many sites does this provide for us again?
This would be for 12 full-service sites,
Yeah.
as well as we replaced the tenting sites, or we're planning to replace the tenting sites we're removing and putting them closer to the registration building.
Okay. And Municipal Sustainability Program is paying for this $376,000, correct?
I think we agreed to 350.
350.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where the 120 comes in. So I would like to see this project carried through. It's a small improvement. It's only 12 sites, but it is an improvement and an asset to the park that other campgrounds don't have. My motion is option 1. Regional Enhancement Fund to allocate the funds of $120,000.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. We have a motion on the floor. Are there any more questions or comments? Holly, please.
Well, I can't support that motion for a couple of reasons. One is it might be a new thing to have, but as a council, we've been spending a lot of money already, and $100,000 for septic to sites I don't really feel is a necessary spend. I'm also curious for Matt, because when I looked at the Regional Enhancement Fund, it has decreased substantially in the past year. So maybe perhaps some information on that for us, because I don't quite understand it.
Sure. Maybe I can just defer the Regional Enhancement Fund question until Stephanie's at the table, but I'm hoping that that fund will actually run to zero in the next couple of years. There's been dollars set aside there for several years that Council has designated to be used for projects which have a regional benefit. Of the funds in that Regional Enhancement Fund, the bulk of it has been allocated to the City of Brooks and the town of Bassano for cost-shared projects. The $700,000 for the pathway that the City of Brooks has committed will be coming out of that Regional Enhancement Fund. There's a few small dollars for the individual divisions, Div 2, Div 6, Div 9, and we'll see those when Stephanie's at the table. But that Regional Enhancement Fund really should be reaching the end of its useful life now that we have individual intermunicipal collaboration framework agreements in place with our partners. The Regional Enhancement Fund is really the remnants of our previous revenue sharing agreements that we had with each of those individual municipalities. So I think it's good to be sitting on some dollars in reserve. These dollars are really allocated for doing something with. So I think the question for council is, this is a project with regional benefit. It kind of fits the criteria that fund was set up for. The question to council will be, is this the project that you want to allocate those funds to?
Thank you, Matt. Question, Dan, please.
So is there $120,000 in that fund that we can allocate to this? Or are we stealing, or robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of a thing?
Yeah, there's currently about $185,000 available in that fund left to allocate. So the 120, and Todd's usually pretty good about coming in tight, so maybe he won't use the entire 120.
Okay, Ellen, please. I have a question then too.
Push the right button. The only reason why I'm going to vote in favour is hopefully we'll have another discussion on this. The 12 full sites, I believe, should be then charged an absolute fee, because that is the royal treatment as far as I'm concerned. Normally people always have to go to the dump site and then go back to your site. So I think we should have the conversation on those sites should pay $1 for that.
Todd, go ahead. If you
Yeah, maybe through the schedule of fees when we get there.
Okay, I just want to ask a comment with regard to a clarification. Basically, Todd, you're talking about 12 sites that are would be served by septic that just short of $100,000 is the actual cost of that. Is that correct for those 12 sites?
Sorry, can you...
On your, to summarize where the shortcomings in our budget occurred, the septic to sites, the budget was $59,200, and the actual looks like it's just short of $100,000, $99,874, correct?
Yeah, the two big areas, you're right, was the septic and then the irrigation was the other big one.
Right, but the additional cost, but that's still for 12 sites, right?
Yes.
And you also said, did I hear you correctly, that you have been renting out seasonal sites for $2,000 for the season?
Yeah, plus GST.
And they go at that. So, I mean, that's an interesting potential for return on investment. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that septic is additional cost, there probably is opportunity there because currently there's no septic sites services there at all. Is that right? So, I mean, I'm just trying to square the circle for myself on that, but it sounds like there's potential for some cost recovery on that, which isn't something that happens to us that often. So.
Yeah, and I think capital takes a long time to cost recover for sure, but
yeah, but it's still potential, I think. Yeah. Anyway, Greg, please.
So those 12 full service sites, we're talking about $2,000 a year, Todd, for those with septic?
Well, that 2,000 plus GST is that's for the just powered sites right now.
Okay.
So
what are we thinking on charging with septic?
Yeah, that's a great question. If we decide to go with something along the lines of a $45 a night, I can't remember off the top of my head what I had done, but I know it was over $3,000. I thought it was in the kind of $3,400 if we were to go to a seasonal site on full service.
Okay, so I see a potential of probably an extra, I would say, $12,000 a year for a total, $12,000 extra revenue for them to be serviced and rather than not serviced, as far as septic goes. Now, those power sites, do they include water? So this is water and sewer. It is definite advantage if we're going to keep them as someone that can stay there the whole time. It is definitely advantage and to have them have septic and water, both, rather than pulling their camper out all the time. It is an inconvenience if they're there all the time. I'm thinking, how does that compare to Rolling Hills or Rolling Hills Reservoir or Crawling Valley as far as their power only? They have water too, right? So power only and water, what is the price difference there? What are their full service? What are they charging? Do you know?
Somebody can correct me, usually somebody does, but I thought that the EID was in the neighborhood of $3,500 last year for Rolling Hills. They have that wonderful lake that draws people there, and that's as much of a draw as the camping experience would be, right?
Can I just suggest that this is a discussion that we can advance further if we're going to discuss setting rates, and I appreciate that it is critical to the decision to spend money here as well potentially. But those are things that we have not specified at this point, and understanding from Todd that you don't have a budget set up or a speculative budget set up for that at this point either. Okay, thanks.
And just to clarify, I'm looking at $1,500 per site extra.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work out the math to see how long it's going to take us to pay for this, and it's only 3-4 years from my math. So so I'll vote for it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Are you ready for the question? The motion on the floor is that we approve the recommendation to go ahead with this additional spending. Ready to call for the question? All in favor, please indicate. Opposed? Okay, that's carried with opposition, but the motion's carried. Thank you, Todd. Okay. That takes, it's 11 o'clock. And we are scheduled for Stephanie Hanson to come in to discuss the restricted surplus review approval for the year-end transfers. Right on time. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm here to give you a brief overview of our restricted surplus, the policy as it sits right now, and to ask for Council's approval to accept what we are proposing to move into the restricted surplus at the end of our year-end here. So the county has a restricted surplus policy which requires an annual review of all the surplus funds and to give you a report of how it sits to council on an annual basis.
Stephanie, could I get you just to pull that mic just a little closer to your, just speak right into it if you could, I think.
Okay, can you hear me now?
That's better, thank you.
Okay, so the restricted surplus is one of the components of the county's accumulated surplus. And what that represents is our net worth and the net resources available to provide for future services. So what the restricted surplus is that we're going to put a restriction on how we're going to spend that money for future use. As mentioned earlier in the previous discussion, certain funds are meant for certain ways of spending. So what we have here is we have several different funds that we can use the money for. We have vehicles and machinery, which is used to buy machinery and equipment. Facilities is used for buildings. Infrastructure we use for some of the big projects such as road work, bridges. The Regional Enhancement Fund, which was previously discussed, has already been pretty much allocated, which is used for the City of Brooks Pathway, Pisano. We have a fire apparatus fund, which is used to provide for future replacement of fire trucks. We have a paving fund, which is used to help fund any overlays that we do throughout the county. We have a recreation fund, which then is used to provide for funding for recreation within the county and different service groups. And then we have the stabilization fund, which is used to help provide for unanticipated expenditures, things that maybe we didn't anticipate to happen when we were doing the budget, and it's there for our use. So now I'm here to provide you that as we worked through our year end and came up with some final numbers, we are proposing to move some money into these funds for future years. We are recommending a $4.75 million to go into the infrastructure fund and $536,248 to go into the stabilization fund, which brings that fund up to $5 million, which is where we like to keep it on an annual basis. Anybody have any questions? It's a lot of information I just provided.
Anyone have any questions? Matt, please.
I would like to just draw Council's attention to the two funds here that contain several different projects. So the first one being that Future Projects Fund. We do have a carry forward from our software project. There's some unallocated or unspent dollars there, $433,000. When Council built this wonderful facility, there's a few dollars remaining from the money that was set aside for that. We also set aside dollars for our reclamation costs on our gravel pits. So you'll see on our financial statements, if you look at them, we have a liability to get to the gravel pits and reclaim those. So we've set aside dollars for that. There's $416,000 there. Our gravel crushes, we save a little bit into the Future Projects Fund each year, and then when we have to spend, $1.5 million in a given year, we'll pull it out. So we even the tax burden over time with our use of these reserves. The largest amount sitting in that Future Projects Fund is really set aside for settling the debt on the rural water project, the first phase. So there's $2.4 million allocated towards that. Getting back to the Regional Enhancement Fund balance, I do want to draw, especially the attention of councillors from Division 2, 6, and 9, the amounts that have been allocated for your divisions for projects that will benefit the region. So if there's community groups that are looking for a tree to shake, this is the tree to shake. And these have been sitting around and carried forward for several years. So if there's a beneficial project, by all means, we should be putting this money to good use, providing services for our folks in the county. And then you'll see the lion's share of the allocations there. City of Brooks, $700 for the pathway, and they do have a remaining balance that they could come to council and pitch another project, say we want to do X and use these dollars. And we've asked for those projects to be on a 50-50 basis, right? So and then a small amount for the town of Pisano, and that should get chewed up right away on projects that have been approved for their recreation facility. So just a little bit of background there on what's sitting in those accounts.
Dan, please. Thanks, Matt.
Two quick questions. That money that's left over in that regional enhancement fund, you mentioned 2, 6, and 10. Is it available for other divisions as well? Is one of the questions. And the other one is, with these accounts, are they locked in that money will always be in those accounts until it's spent and it can never be transferred to another account? That if it's allocated for fire apparatus fund, for instance, that money will have to eventually one day be spent on fire apparatus funds?
So to the first question, I mean, at council's pleasure, you can reallocate these amounts in the regional enhancement fund. It would kind of go against the original setup of the account. Each division had their original amount allocated, and there's been several projects funded over time. So, you know, administration would recommend that for Div 2, 6, and 9, you leave those amounts for those divisions to use. In terms of can we play with the funds that are set aside in the fire apparatus fund and move it somewhere else? Yes, you can do that with a council motion. The one reserve that you can't do that with is the paving fund, where we've raised a special tax for paving. Those funds must be used for paving. But the bulk of these other restricted surplus accounts are guided by restricted surplus policy. So we've set some guidelines. We're really interested in being a leader among all municipalities. I mean, the County of Newell has been extremely blessed with the resources they have available, maintaining really competitive tax rates. So it's, you know, you look at reserve balances increasing over time, and I think I mentioned this during our budget conversations. You want to see those increasing over time. You know, the inflation that we're dealing with this year, it doesn't hurt as much. I mean, it hurts, but you've got some flexibility built in with the scheme and the policy that council has set with setting funds aside in your reserves.
Thanks for that perspective, Matt. Any further questions about this, or is someone ready to make a motion? We have a recommendation. Dan, go ahead, please.
Yeah, those charts and all those numbers, that's a whole different language that I think would take me a few years to catch on with. I'll try, but you'll have to give me a few years. In the meantime, I'll trust you guys on that one, and I'll make a motion to approve the post-year-end transfer to restricted surplus as detailed above.
Okay, are there any further comments or questions? You're ready for the question? All in favor of Dan's motion that we approve the recommendation, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. And I think just to add to the comments, certainly the cost of doing business has increased significantly in the last year as a result of the economy that we're living in. So the fact that our county is blessed to be in a relatively good position is a good thing for us, but something we never take for granted either. So, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Let's move to item number 9.3, the Rural Municipalities of Alberta 2022 member visit scheduling. Ariana, do you have some information or some, is that?
I can
or maybe Matt can, yeah.
I'll give it a shot. So every 3 years, the RMA schedules a visit with councils. They're looking to arrange a visit with you guys. Let me see. They have two options: a standard 1-hour meeting, either attached to a council meeting, committee meeting, or standalone, or a longer 2 to 3 hour meeting outside of a council. In the past, we've just had them come to council. What else is on here? They like to
group regions together. So we're in the group with Cypress, Lethbridge, Warner, Cardston. And there's a couple of conflicts noted on there. I don't know what month that is.
Okay, thank you. What do we, Matt, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think, for our purposes today, the decision from council is, do you want a 1 hour meeting or do you want to get cozy with these guys and spend 2 to 3 hours with them? Once we have that information, then Ariana and I can go back to the drawing board here and look at calendars and send out the additional information that they've requested here. So I guess that's really the decision we're looking for council to make is 1 hour, or you want to spend more time with these guys on a day other than a standard council meeting. And to be fair, I mean, Paul is, you've got a pretty cool president of the RMA right now. He's probably pretty entertaining if you can tie him down for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, in person.
Could
Opportunity to put ourselves on the map in a bigger way. I think we've had some discussions informally around that. Any questions or comments? Holly, please.
I'm just wondering whether Alan, Kelly, or Matt could give us the advantages of doing it 2 to 3 hours opposed to 1 hour. Is there advantages? Is there anything we should be looking at here?
The advantage would be you'd have the ear of the RMA president to feed him all of the advocacy items that you want to push at the RMA, right? So if there's additional work you want to do and put some advocacy information in front of him, having a little longer might not be bad. But an hour meeting, whatever your pleasure is. And the entertainment value, I guarantee Paul McLaughlin, he would entertain you quite well for 2 or 3 hours.
I think we've all had opportunity to watch him in action a few times already, and I would agree that also in terms of like I said, getting our, if we want more people to know where we're at, that's a good opportunity. So I think that would be good. Kelly, you maybe have some perspective to add from the past?
Well, maybe a little different perspective. We've only ever had the gents attend our meeting in the past. I'm thinking if we're suggesting a 3-hour meeting, we better have an agenda with some items on it, more than one, because otherwise it becomes their agenda. And I'm not sure that we want to be burdened with their full agenda. I throw that out there to you. I'm in favor of a 1-hour visit at council, and that way our ratepayers get to know the governing body as well. If we do a 3-hour meeting, that would be a private session or a closed session. So I'm in favor of a 1 hour. My thoughts. Ellen?
And I can see your point. On the other side, would it hurt to have a private session, perhaps where minds can flow free and look into some possibilities, if you will? I'm not against that at all either, because a 1 hour with Paul is like 5 minutes with other people. He talks a lot. So I'm not against it. Obviously, we would need some really good agenda items, things to look at, and sometimes I think it might be good to discuss things, where's it going from now, and so on and so forth. So perhaps a little bit of a different opinion on this side.
Okay, just a question that I had. Thank you, Ellen. Sorry, did you ask a question too, or just a comment, right? Yeah, a question that I have, in an hour would be a meeting here in council chambers, which may happen anyway, but is there opportunity if it's a 2 to 3 hour exchange to organize a brief tour and then still have an hour or however or more meeting here? Is that a possibility? And I'm sorry, I haven't read this in detail with that in mind, so it's a question with regard to what the standard procedure is with regard to a visit like this.
Yeah, so a tour, yeah. My question is where in a couple hours. So you would have an agenda item, or you have something in mind maybe.
I mean, I think we'd have to consider what might be worthy to fill the time. I think of if we have guests from further north, the opportunity to highlight what's done down here through irrigation is something that could be highlighted very easily in a short period of time. That's just an example. I'm not imposing that on us, but it's certainly something. Pardon me.
So you're suggesting in council and both 2 hours, 3 hours?
Potentially, if that's a possibility, let's be creative with it. I mean, that'll help them remember us too. Amanda, please.
I know we also spoke about the Alberta policing and the trade with Alberta were some of the issues we brought up last time. Maybe that's something we can talk to them about as well.
Sure, that's right. I think there's possibilities. There's all kinds of options available. Dan, go ahead.
From reading what these guys have sent to us, it sounds like they want to get to know us so that we're not just a name at a table at a convention. And from seeing Paul in action, he seems quite genuine and that he actually does want to get to know us. I think if we were to do something like this, I'm in agreement with having an agenda. I don't think you'd have to worry about them coming in and taking over with their agenda. I think their agenda is to find out what works for us. But having an agenda to set would be good. Having a few extra hours, a little more informal, might be more relaxing and work better to get our voices heard. And if we were to do up some kind of an agenda, we could make that agenda public knowledge so that our ratepayers are well aware of what we're doing for them. I like that idea of taking them on a tour. But again, based on what they're saying, I think it might be tough to convince them to sit in council for an hour and then go tour the place and spend time, because they're going to try to go spend a couple hours in another county on the same day. But it'd be really cool if we can convince them to do that. I think that'd be neat. But that's where I'm at. I'm thinking a more informal, whatever, a longer session, 2 to 3 hours, with an agenda would be the way to do it.
Okay. Is that a motion, or does someone have a motion with regard to this? Holly, please.
I make a motion that we propose a longer meeting with the RMA for a date to be determined.
Thank you, Holly. Any further comments or questions? All in favor, please indicate. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you. So we can build a framework around that as we get more information, I guess, eh?
Yeah, we'll come back as we get closer to a date. We'll work with their admin now. We can get really creative. If we want them to be part of council meeting, we could schedule them for the last bit, and then maybe we all hop in the minibus and take a tour. Right. So I think it could be a good opportunity to highlight the region for sure.
Okay, thank you. That is item 9.3. Let's go to item 9.4, joint meeting, Grasslands School Division. Matt, you've got...
Yeah, so this one is also really easy, I think, when you're trying to corral people from multiple boards. Council's really popular, it seems, right? Everybody wants to be spending time with you, including Grasslands trustees. So we've received an invite from Rian Schroeder over there to get together, and typically there's been a meal. We host. We typically go back and forth each year. So just looking for dates that may or may not work into May and June. And I'm not sure what the easiest way to do this is, but maybe would it be appropriate, Ariana, if council sent you dates that don't work, and then we can try and corral something down with Rian?
Yes, that's the best thing. I think they sent a couple dates that didn't work for them. So don't choose May 16th or 30th or June 6th, 7th, or 20th.
Okay, so we're pretty wide open. Okay, that's good. So we probably need to, we probably need to tighten the options a little bit for ourselves too, and I'm not sure we need to do that here, but we probably can. Is it reasonable to have a proposal or a couple of options brought to us, and then we can pick the one that seems to work? Kelly, you've got a suggestion maybe.
So a suggestion is that we pick a Thursday. We're all in town for that meeting, for that. We've done this in the past. And then whether the council meeting ends at 2:30 or what, but we're in town at least, so that saves some mileage. So do you want to stick to May, say May 5th or May 19th? I just opened up May, and those are our council meetings of that month.
I think that's certainly within the realm of possibility for us.
That's avoiding June, which
Yeah.
is their year end,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what do you think about either of those? And then if Ariana goes back with two possibilities, that starts the conversation. Just
I think
how do you
that's
feel
good.
about that?
That's a good suggestion, brings it to focus for us. And do we need a motion on that, or just consensus from council? I think that's probably good enough for now, because it'll be a matter of what works best on both sides. We'll have another decision to make on that anyway. Is that close enough from your perspective, Ariana?
That's perfect. And then I guess agenda items at some point, but doesn't have to be today.
Okay. No, that's good. Thank you. Okay, Greg, please.
If at all possible, can we nail down the 19th? I'm going to be away on the 5th, so if we can nail down the 19th, that would be awesome.
Okay, that'll be our priority, and we'll take it from there. Holly, please.
Should we then make a secondary date of June 9th in case that date doesn't work? That would be the next Thursday after the 19th, and in case
That's
that doesn't work for them?
awfully close to rodeo week, if I recall, but
Good point.
we could bump it back to April.
We could have a Friday and have a rodeo supper, and then I'll go to the rodeo together, and
Okay. Let's try for May 19th, and if it has to go to another date, either earlier or later, that could work, I think. So, thank you, Ariana. That's good. Okay, item number 9.4. 9.5, council payment sheets. Any questions, comments, or a motion with regard to direction on payment sheets? Dan, please.
We still have a couple corrections to get made on those, because I don't know what happened there. I think with that short change for December, with everything happening quick, and then it was a long time in between, I got my months crossed up, and we still haven't submitted the changes to Jackie, but I emailed her, and she said, yeah, the changes can still be accepted afterwards. So if we were to accept them, will be as they are amended, and I'll send out an email to everybody with the changes probably tonight, so that everyone sees what's being done.
Okay, so your motion is to
Accept them as they are
with
amended.
some amendments coming. Yeah, okay. All in favor of that, please indicate. That's, pardon me? Oh, well.
You guys will see the email before Jackie sees it. I'll send it to everybody and then back in. There's very little changes. I think it's about a half hour is the biggest change that we saw.
Okay, we have a an 11:30 appointment in 5 minutes. I'm going to suggest we take 5 minutes and meet back together in 5 minutes with number 7.1. That's a request for the use of the County of Newell name for the Silver Sage Ag Society, and Brad Christie is joining us online. Is that right? Brad, are you there? Or Susan, can you tell us if Brad's online? Okay, how do I change that?
I can speak to it if you want me to.
Okay, yeah. Matt, maybe you can just summarize the issue. I think it's presented to us fairly clearly, too. 7.1.
Yeah, so 7.1, we received a request from Silver Sage Ag Society to, and there's also in your correspondence section, you'll see some transfer of assets from the Kinsmen to the Silver Sage. The Kinsmen's getting out of the rodeo business, and the Silver Sage is looking for a new name for the rodeo, and they have proposed the Newell Pro Rodeo, and they have kindly put it to council to see if you would support that. We have reached out to legal, and they've recommended that there would be no issue. The county could reply to the Ag Society and let them know we wouldn't take you to court over the use of the name Newell in Pro Rodeo. So that's kind of the Coles notes of the request here.
Right, and as per the legal counsel, I mean, that's not proprietary. We don't treat Newell itself as proprietary. County of Newell is, but not Newell. So there's no issue there. Anyone have any questions or comments or direction for us with regard to this matter? Holly, please.
Well, I make a motion that we allow them the use of the name Newell Pro Rodeo. I'm just curious, as a question, does this mean that they're taking over the whole rodeo, everything? It'll when it did before, just under a new name, basically? Because this is all news to me, and I read this. I'm like, did anybody else know this? Am I just in the dark ages, or, you know?
I think that maybe the wording of the motion might be that we take no issue with them using Newell in the name of their pro rodeo. And that might be the most accurate, and also indicates that we don't claim ownership to that it is not a proprietary circumstance. Any further questions? All in favor of the motion, please indicate. That is carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That completes item 7.1. We are back to...
Go to 9.6 and then committee reports.
Great. Yeah, let's move down to item 9.6, requests for functions of council. Are there any functions of council? Anybody need direction with regard to any of that? Or approvals? Greg, please.
I do have one here. I'm not sure if everyone is invited to this or whether it was just me. It came to me individually, but it's from the Medicine Hat College, Brooks campus. It's a meet and greet, and it's as a valued member of the college community and newly elected leader, Medicine Hat College's interim board chair, Sarah McKenzie, and president and CEO kindly invites you to the Brooks campus for a meet and greet session. This is an opportunity for the college and councils to share ideas, discuss opportunities in line with strategy. I don't know, did you all receive this email?
I did. I think we've all received that. Is that right?
It's okay. It's March 10th from 4 to 6, and I do want to go to this. And I think we all probably should if we're all being invited. So I think it's important that we make that a function of council.
Okay, you're moving that we make the meeting with Medicine Hat College on March the 10th a function of council?
Yeah. It's not a meeting. It's a meet and greet.
It's a meet and greet, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that's something that we do.
I mean,
Kelly, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, if it was a sit-down meeting, that would be one thing, but I don't think all of council needs to go to a meet and greet. I mean, it's maybe half of council, or I'm just being realistic here. It's not a meeting, so I would make a motion that Greg and two others that show an interest in going, that they be allowed to go as a function of council.
Okay, Greg?
Can I suggest that joint services, the board member or the members that attend joint services go to this?
As a function of council?
As a function of council.
That's an option. But I don't think that precludes anyone else from going either if we've all been invited. But you're talking about this being a function of council for the Joint Services Committee members, the three of them?
And the reason why I say that is that we are currently, there have been discussions in joint services about, especially with doctors in the area, maybe Medicine Hat College becoming a step towards a pre-education to start with doctors maybe working in the rural area as part of their education. So I think it's to expand on that, and we've been talking quite a bit about that at joint services, and I think it may be important for us to show up to this.
Sure. Okay, I think that's good. Dan, please.
So just to clarify, if that goes through, the joint services members go and get paid to go, and if I go, I'm going for free, right?
Yeah, that's what we've just kind of discussed, I think. But I mean, and that was that. Now, just a minute. I started. Oh, I took a motion from Greg, right? The Joint Services Committee.
No, I just suggested.
Oh, that was just a suggestion. So we don't have a motion at this point then. Or you didn't make one, did you, Kelly? Or did you?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I didn't shut off. So I had suggested that Greg and two others be approved to go as a function of council.
Okay.
That was my motion.
That's the motion, so that would be 3 people, but it's more general than just joint services members. Any further discussion? Holly, please.
Is there a show of hands of people who are interested in going, perhaps?
I think maybe that's a good idea. Who is interested in attending?
I just have a question here. I'm looking at the email, and it says it's Tuesday, March 15th from 4 to 6 in the lobby.
Okay, we'll be in Edmonton during that time frame anyway, so. Okay. Okay. Right.
So I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, we have no motion. There is a conflict with the previous schedule unless someone is not attending the RMA convention, then I guess it would be a possibility, but at this point there's nothing there. So let's just leave that for now. Okay. Any other functions of council? Seeing none, we'll move along. Committee reports, right. Councillor Philpott, do you have a Newell Housing Foundation report for us?
I would just, as it is presented there, but I do have some additions for Newell Housing. They did hire a financial manager, Charlene Anderson. She's a local gal, and she started February 14th, and the other manager, financial manager, will stay on until she's orientated, and then he will be finished. And they're also working on a web page. And Adina, do you have anything else to add to that? All right. And the rest is in my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Amanda? Okay, thank you. And you move the acceptance of your report. All in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Reside program, Councillor Chrisman, you presented a written report to us with regard to that. Any further comments on that? Okay, any questions with regard to the report that was submitted? Seeing none, do you have a motion that we accept that report? Okay, all in favor, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. Post-agenda items, I don't think that we have any, and we're getting very close to our 11:45 meeting with our MP, Martin Shields, who I believe just walked in, so we're right on time.
You could probably rip through the information items if there's any questions on that.
Yeah, let's just, for a few minutes here, just information items, payment registered, any questions with regard to that? Ellen, please.
Yes, I had a question, and it's under a payment register for council, a payment to the City of Brooks in the amount of, it's called City of Brooks Hort Main C, and it's for $850,000, and I was just wondering what that is for.
Matt, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so back to the Regional Enhancement Fund that we were talking about earlier, that is a project that Council approved joint funding on, the Hort Main Line expansion. It's a sewer line out there. So it's been carried forward for at least 1 year, and it finally got done last year, so that's good news for them.
Okay, any other questions with regard to payments? If not, I'm going to suggest that we go to our meeting with it's our pleasure and our privilege to have our MP, Martin Shields, here with us this morning. So, Martin, welcome. Take a chair at the mic and there. Now we can see you. Welcome. I'm sure you've had some interesting weeks.
Thank you. For the opportunity to talk about it here.
Yeah. Some places you go and they automatically come on, and then you're pushing them to turn them on, and you turn them off. And anyways, it's great to see you. Many of you I've known for a long time. Some of you in the council for a long time, and some of you are new to council. So it's great opportunity. We're missing Neil today. I've known Neil for a long time as well. So thank you for the opportunity to sit down and talk about what's going on, because it's very boring in Canada, and nobody's heard of Canada recently, and nothing much happening. But we're already getting calls this morning about trying to get people out of the Ukraine. So we have people who have family in Ukraine, and they're already contacting our office saying, how do we get them out? Which will probably change some of the messaging that's been arriving in our office by the thousands in the last few weeks, as that situation has changed. That is a very tough piece in the world when another country is invaded by a foreign country, and there's a lot of connections in our country to that country. And there are people here locally who are calling our office this morning saying, how do I get my family out of the Ukraine? So those things change on a daily basis, and today that's probably taking up a little of our time in our offices as people are reaching out and scrambling across the country to try to deal on a personal basis with family and friends that are in that situation. It'll also mean refugees are probably going to be leaving that country, and countries around them are very concerned of what's showing up at their border. Poland in particular is very concerned that if there's masses of refugees that show up at their borders, are they being followed by tanks behind them? So that's a significant thing in the sense of what we deal with. There's not as many people of Ukrainian descent in this riding as there are in other ridings in Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And I know there's MPs furiously working in their offices today on those particular things, which was a different issue than we might have been dealing with in the last few weeks, which was very different, being that that was a domestic one. But it got a lot of attention. I was just at Lakeside, by the way, meeting with Lakeside, and I know this is a company in your constituency, and I always appreciate the opportunity to meet with the people that are involved with Lakeside and the challenges they have. And they're doing some excellent positive things that you probably know about, and if you don't, the educational piece with the Brooks campus of the Medicine College that they shared with me this morning is something that you may know about or may not. But they're working with a program for dollars for tuition for employees or their dependents to take courses at the Medicine College Brooks campus, which is going to be a significant piece for this campus here. As many of you have had connections or know about the college here, I see it as an underutilized facility, and I think that the direction that JBS is going with the Medicine College on this campus is going to be a real positive one for their employees and for their families as they look at working to try to find programs for them, trades, education courses of transferability to other universities. They're really working positively and want to pursue this, and they've had extremely positive response from their employees about the possibility of this. So that was on the positive side that they're working at. On the challenge of recruitment, across the country, economists are writing about how Canada, the comeback for our economy is going to be severely handicapped by the lack of people to work. And so JBS has been limited at 10% cap in the sense of what they can do for their program under the immigration, and to the west of us, they have 20% at their plant. So this plant has been all right to the 10, but now they're in trouble at 10. And so they'll be lobbying with the provincial government and the federal government to increase that number because they are now experiencing more shortages in the trades than they've had recently, and they need to push at that. But as an economy in our area, that is a significant one to the County of Newell, both in the sense of what it provides as an economic driver, but also as the cattle industry is critically important in our area. And I know you stay connected with JBS as well as the business, but it's always great to go visit with JBS and see what they're doing. They probably want to, and I often talk about, in a sense, when I get the opportunity, about the retention rate they have, which is the best in North America in their industry. So they have really worked at retaining staff with the programs they have there. I mean, they just recently settled their contract. I mean, in High River at Cargill, that was in the news for months and months and going on. These guys just quietly settled their contract out here, which was great to see. And that was done in February. It's done. So it's a 4 or 5 year contract, I believe. But that's settled. No news about that being a challenge to do, no unions out there, no management taking positions, that they've just quietly got it done. Which that's also very good in our area in the sense that it doesn't create the challenges that contracts being settled in the public format they've done it quietly, which is great on both sides, the union and the management, to get that one done. The other issue, I was in the Tabor region yesterday, meeting with different groups, and the issue over the number of possible Mennonite, the Mexican Mennonite, Canadian Mexican Mennonites who have reportedly left. And I kept hearing the number up of 200 families. It's hard trying to get an exact number of who, but everybody seems to have a number, whether it's the mayor of Tabor, somebody from the MD, people in businesses. The number of 200 families having left is a number that I heard repeated. There is a large farming operation that I know when I've been to that farming operation, they may have up of maybe 100 people working there in season and much less in the off season, but at this point in time, they only have 6 people there. And so there's a lot of concern to the south of us of what they're facing come spring, whether they have in fact have left or whether they're coming back if they have left. And that comes into our area here as well, in the sense of the agricultural sector. So that's something that talking about. I have talked with people who have a severe shortage of truck drivers, and that's also a real issue in this area. I hear from one sector of the area that we all know well saying, well, we had truck drivers until that guy's over there with those drilling rigs, they came and stole them all and paid more. So there's a very severe shortage of truck drivers, for example, in the region, and that's not uncommon in a lot of Canada, but it is here as well, very much. Okay, I've rattled.
Thank you. I just was thinking of a question relative to the families that have left. Is there a reason for that? Is it relative to the...
Absolutely. It's all to do with COVID and the mandates for vaccines. And whatever else comes along with those controls and restrictions are the reasons that they are leaving.
Has that been raised anywhere from to your awareness with various levels of government? I mean, that was...
I think I raised it in the question in the House last week, and the Liberals thought this was a huge joke.
Yeah.
The response I got was not very positive. It was pretty roaring negative towards, I would suggest, any such thing of lifting the mandates.
Yep. That's a concern.
Yep.
Yeah. Kelly, please.
Just going back to those folks in Ukraine or with family in Ukraine, are you able to do anything for them at this point?
There's 2 processes going on at the moment, in the sense that the Canadian government is attempting to extract Canadian citizens. They're Canadian citizens, you got a Canadian passport. So I would, as this has been in the news for months, that is it going to happen? Is it going to do it? No, it's not going to happen today. And, well, maybe it'll happen tomorrow. That you would assume that people would left, but they didn't. So the Canadian government today is trying to get their Canadian citizens out. So what we're doing in a sense with immigration is we know they're tied up trying to get those out, but also where's the line of us to communicate with immigration to find a way to get others out. Is it a refugee process we're dealing with? Is it temporary visas that you need to get people out with? Is it a travel visa get them out? So we're working through that. And as you realize in Ottawa with COVID, there are a lot of federal employees who are working at home. They're not in their departments. They're not in the buildings. And some of those things that they would have access to if they were there, there's some people who can't work in their jobs because they have to have access to those things in the buildings and not at home. So that's a challenge we also have. Our files on immigration, on the regular processing of immigration, they are backlogged for years. And the minister keeps promising that they've got to find a solution to speed that up. So we've got double-barreled here.
Dina, please.
So I know with GBS, we have a large population of Ukrainians here, and so their family members would all be considered immigrants then, to bring them over here?
That's what we're trying to find out, if they would be considered a refugee, or whether you're coming on a travel, just temporarily in a sense, to get a visa out, a traveling visa, or whether if it's in a regular immigration line, then you've got to get into a lot of paperwork. Some things can be expedited very quickly in different ways, but if it's in regular immigration, for example, we have a doctor who will be coming quickly. He's doing his 3-month in Stettler, and then he'll be coming to Brooks, I think, in April. His wife is also a doctor, but to get those expedited to the process, because we need doctors in this country, that took a lot of work, and took a long time for us to get them expedited out of the line, the regular line, which is taking years. So it's not simple. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Greg?
Why is there such a lineup of immigrants coming here? Is it due to the vetting process? Is it something in the past that has created this backlog? Is it I'm just wondering how do we speed this up?
Good question. Now, many of you remember Marty Solberg when he was here, and he was immigration minister. And I remember touring around his building, and he showed me from floor to floor. And all of the immigration files when he was the minister were paper. And they were stacked and stacked, and he stacked. He says staff spends 50% of their time trying to find the file, and then 50% of the time trying to get it back in the right place so they can find it again. So they've never automated, and they've tried, and they're slowly trying to do it, so we're still stuck in between paper files and automated files. And that has been a huge drag on the whole system. The other part that is really getting more complicated, and particularly with refugees, and this is when we talked about Afghanistan, right? So they were asking those people for records of school records and all sorts of paper records to be sent to them, and these were refugees standing at the airport, right, trying to get on, and we were sending them messages, would you please get those things printed for us and sent to us? Well, we're standing in a war zone. So part of our processing is, since what we require for immigration and some of those things is, those people from some of those countries, to get that kind of documentation is very, very hard. And it's the same thing when you get, let's say, we dealt with a case with a nurse from the Philippines. The paperwork that they wanted, and they wanted the original documents, not copies of, but the original documents. How long it took that person to be able to go back to that place. They're here as temporary, but then to go back to a country that they're not living in and trying to get original documents, it really gets difficult and slows it down, and then when you don't get it, they say you go to the back line and start over again. So we have a very, very... Now, do we want our immigration process to work correctly? Do we want it to make sure that people are legitimately coming here? Absolutely. But we've got a tough process to get it updated. And the minister talks about that, current one.
Changing the subject a little bit, I recognize and appreciate your tie you have on today. That's very dapper.
Thank you.
How did you fare during the convoy a couple weeks down east? And can you tell us a little bit about what we didn't see, or I guess what I'm referring to is the stories. There's two stories. There's stories that the convoy was belligerent and nasty, and we didn't see any of that in the public stream, but I just wondered what your take was of the convoy. I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Demonstrations on Parliament Hill have gone on forever. Sometimes they're a single person that you see. I saw one guy, and I talked to him once in a while, and I called him Greta's grandfather, and he was a retired guy, and he was protesting pipelines. And he was a nice, friendly guy, but he was there every day for 6 months. So you find people that Gulong Fong, they've been there for 6 years, from protesting about what's happening in China. So you find some that are there for a few minutes to some that seems like what they do. You find groups that come. You find there's masses of groups come. One of the first ones that I saw was when the military showed up, and there was every 6 feet, there was an Army guy with his AK-47 to protect us. Virtually nobody showed up to protest, but they thought there was somebody. So with this particular one, the protocol on Wellington Street that goes the major 6 blocks, there's 4 lanes, and the protocol is that if you're in a driving, it has something to do with vehicles, you use the 1 lane on the inside. And the most recent one was the PEI potato guys. And they came with their truckloads of potatoes, and they were handing out bags of potatoes, and they stayed a couple of days, and they parked in that lane. And there was pylons put at the end or whatever the trucks, so you didn't run into them. So we've seen farmers come with their tractors in that lane. The dairy guys came one time and let out their cows in that lane. So that lane is the protocol. You use that 1 lane. There's going to be a lot of inquiry as to what happened on the Thursday before the convoys got there. I've talked to the head of our security after the first weekend. We have a parliamentary security that is responsible for the buildings and grounds that we're in, either as offices or the parliamentary buildings for the House of Commons. Back in 2013, after the shooting that happened of the person at the War Memorial, and then it came shooting in the building, there was the House of Commons security, there was the Senate security, there was the RCMP on the grounds outside, and the Ottawa Police on the street. They didn't talk to each other, and they were very separate entities. So after that, then there became the parliamentary security on all the inside the buildings, and the RCMP still on the grounds and the Ottawa on the street. Well, eventually the RCMP left, and the parliamentary police took over all of the hill except the streets. So our parliamentary security was very concerned at what had been allowed to happen on the streets. So I think you will hear it, and I have to be careful because there's going to be inquiries, but it is my belief from what I've been told that the trucks were allowed to use all the lanes. And they had believed, as I talked to truck drivers, they were going to do the 1 lane rolling convoy through, and they had trucks that this had gone, maybe gone for days. I don't know, it'd take a long time to all the trucks were there. So when they came in Friday afternoon, as I left my office, I'm going, we had wall-to-wall trucks all over the place here, and by Sunday night, every street, as well as Wellington, even the one past where I live, I could see trucks for 20 blocks, and all the side streets were gridlocked. At that point, the City of Ottawa took and put large machinery at the ends of the trucks, at the end of the gridlock, whether it was graders, garbage trucks, cement blocks. They were gridlocked in. I mean, Gary, Norton from out at Rosemary was there, and he said, I'm going to have to leave. Tim, right. Yep. He wasn't planning on staying, but he was gridlocked in. So, I lived at one end of the street, 5 blocks from sort of the other in the main area. For the first week, you had 4 lanes of trucks that didn't turn their horns off. I couldn't hear the TV in my condo 5 stories up. So it was loud. They could have done something earlier about that. And so that backed into residential areas. So were people upset? Were they concerned? Were they intimidated? We had a lot of people on the streets they'd never seen before. A lot of people that these people who live there had never seen before, because the protesters aren't usually in their neighborhood blocks back from Parliamentary Hill. intimidated, scared. I had people in the building I lived moved because they couldn't deal with the noise. They went somewhere else. On the street itself, I walked through it every day from end to end. I was never intimidated. I was never afraid. I was never harassed. But that was me. That was my experience. On the weekends, there was thousands of people showed up down to this street from the city of Ottawa. When they talk about it, a carnival atmosphere, the 4 main intersections of Wellington was a carnival atmosphere. In the evenings, they had music, they danced, they had the hot tub, they had bouncy castles for kids, and they had lots of them. So there was that party atmosphere to it that happened on the streets. These guys quickly figured out logistics. They're locked in, and again, the city police gave them a park not far away to park whatever else they needed to. These guys know logistics. They had a field truck there really quick, and there was wheelbarrows and wagons for their gas cans to move gas really quickly. These guys were building kitchens instantly. The homeless had a lot of meals in a hurry. Anybody that walked by, they'd offer them pancakes for breakfast and hamburgers for supper. These guys just turned it into, this is where we're living. That can be intimidating to those who live there. But I didn't see anybody, nobody was harassed me, but streets full of people that they don't know sort of moved in, caused a problem for the local people living there. The reporting, on the first weekend, and I watch what's called Question Period on CTV with Evan Solomon. I watched that one. I really like the last part where he's got a panel and Mulcair's on it and Nanos is on it. And Nanos made an interesting comment on that first weekend. He said, you guys in the media, you're not paying attention to what's going on here. You're focusing on what you think might be happening out here, and you're not understanding what's happening in the country. And Evan Solomon ignored him. And I went, So the last weekend, after the clearing the streets, again they're on, and Evan Solomon said, I think we as the media went to sleep and didn't watch what was happening here and in our country, which was interesting. So I think the media was looking for a January 6th event that happened like in the United States, and they couldn't find it. When it came to the clearing of, then there was a lot, when they finally, it became that the police were going to clear the streets. I mean, it was well publicized, well known that that's what the police were going to do. And I was down on the street both Friday and Saturday. I have a parliamentary pass, so it would have allowed me to be in any of that areas. But I wasn't with the police, and I wasn't a protester, but I was there and watched what happened. The police were very organized, patient mostly, persistent, and they knew what they were doing. The protesters, they were loud and irritated and upset and didn't think the police had a right to move them. But eventually it just moved and moved and moved, and people were always given the out. You don't want to be arrested, you should just go down that street over there and you'll be fine. And that's what a lot of people did. Over the 3 weeks, there were a lot of vehicles that did leave. They found ways out and people would move. And I mean, within the truckers themselves, hey, look, I've got to go. It's my job, it's my truck. And they would move trucks around and so people could get out. So there was a lot of people. There was a couple of people from GEM. I know one left a week before it ended. And as far as I know, the other one was still there at the end. I didn't see them. I just knew they were there. There was constituents who contacted my office who wanted to see me. They were coming, and so I found where they were and went out and listened to them. I've taken some heat for that because I took a video of meeting with my constituents and listening to them, which I think is my job. There's a lot of things on social media that we all live with. There is a post out there in social media that a whole bunch of us MPs contributed to the convoy. And I phoned my wife. I said, did you? and none of us had. But that's out there. It was put up by a former Liberal MP, but once that's out there, our office started receiving communication negatively about doing that. And it doesn't matter what we do, that's out there now. Once it's out in social media, whether it's ever taken down, it's out there. And as we all know, social media is an interesting place. When I was out there with the protesters, they had been told if you wave a white flag, they will leave you alone. And there was people who believed that. Well, it wasn't true. The part that was upsetting to me in a sense is, sure, there was a lot of families there, a lot of kids there, but they also, when it was time to move and the police, you knew they were moving, there was kids in those front lines. And that's just not a place where kids should be. In my mind, that's not the appropriate thing to do. You can protest all you like, but when you knew or didn't understand whatever that the police were going to clear the streets, and they should, we can't lock down. Across the street from me was a shopping center with 200 stores in it. The rules in Ontario about being masked are strictly enforced. And if you're in a business and you have people in your stores without masks, you're going to get fined quickly and big time. And so as these people moved into the mall to buy things and whatever else, and it came pretty much of a challenge you got a lot of teenagers working in those kinds of stores and got very, very scared. One, that there would be fines, and two, these people were pretty aggressive saying, I'm not wearing a mask. As we will understand. And so that shopping center was shut down, as many businesses in the area were. They were closed. Protesting, absolutely, but you can't lock down on streets where they've been told you got to move. And most of them did. There was very few trucks left at the end of this when they moved the trucks out. There was very few of them that stayed. It was too much risk. Those big rigs are a lot of money. But for the local people to come down and see the amount of big trucks, where these people don't see those big trucks. I've seen the cars, you've seen the cars, the lowrider cars that go up and down. There was guys with semi-rigs that could do that. And it was a show in itself to watch what those guys could do with their big rigs. And a lot of people have never seen those kind of trucks up close. But the implementation of the Emergency Act, in my opinion, was absolutely way more than was necessary. Once you could have had the RCMP in place, the City of Ottawa has dealt with protests of 10,000 people. They know how to work the streets. They know how to work with people in a peaceful way, and they didn't do it. But they didn't need the Emergency Act to do what they need to do.
Martin, you're joining us for lunch, right?
Yep.
Good. Is there anything else? Are we good to break for lunch? I think lunch is here. Is there anything else? I think we can continue the conversation.
Sure.
Informally, if everyone's good with that.
Thank you.
It's good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And we can talk about it some more, but I guess I think we should just, is there anything that we can do to help with, the labor shortage and the issue that you talked about in southern Alberta is a concern, and it's probably no accident. Various levels of government have set the stage for that to happen, and it's a very big concern. I think we need to talk a little, if you've got ideas that we can implement to help with that, I think that's a serious concern for us, I think. So.
You bet.
Okay, we'll continue the conversation. Thanks,
Okay.
Martin. Yeah.
Thanks.